back with another Good Takes episode, and we're excited to dive into a new series this time. And I am especially excited because we're going to talk about some of my favorite books of all time, the Harry Potter series. How excited are you, Sam?
I'm excited. I've not read these books. I'm not half the fan that you are of Harry Potter, and I
Embarrassing.
haven't read the books. I don't know, 10 years or more.
No way,
Um,
not 10 years.
yeah, easily. I mean, you do your yearly read, but
Of
probably
course.
longer than 10 years, honestly. I mean, when I was in university, there was an English literature class where we went through the first one, so that was probably the last time that I was exposed to the books. It's been a minute.
Interesting. Well, and I would love to dive a little more into what your English literature prof had to say about Harry Potter, but we'll save that one because if there's interest, we can continue this content. There's so much Harry Potter conversation to be had. And as you said, I am a diehard fan. The
Yeah.
first book I remember reading is Philosopher's Stone when I think I was 11, so maybe even younger, actually. So really resonated. I grew up with these books. I know you did as well, but yes, I definitely take the biggest fan in the family badge for sure. And I'm really excited to dive into this because I am talking everybody's ear off about my favorite book and the series in general. So we wanted to start off kind of quick and easy and just do a bit of a ranking list of the books. Sam, your recommendations are going to be second fiddle to mine because clearly I am the reigning Harry Potter fan here. I'm actually listening to the Stephen Fry audiobooks for the first time, and I'm on
Ah,
Half-Blood
Stephen
Prince right
Fry.
now. And I'm at and let's just preface this all. If you haven't read the Harry Potter books yet, do it and stop watching this video because there are going to be massive spoilers ahead. So there's our spoiler warning. But as I'm listening to Stephen Fry's Half-Blood Prince version, Sam, I'm at the point where Dumbledore dies. And I'm sure you recall this as clearly as I do, but we were on a family vacation when the Half-Blood Prince came out. And I made us go to a bookstore so we could pick up the book and I could immediately start reading. And what do? But not 2 seconds. We hadn't even left the bookstore. You open the book and immediately tell me that Dumbledore dies.
Well, I think it was very serendipitous that it was the page like that I happened to open on. I didn't have this information. It was just it opened on that page. I think that I probably saved you from immeasurable grief
Stop it.
by just preparing you for the fact that our purple-hatted wizard friend wasn't long for the world.
Well, it's my villain origin story. So when I do anything wrong in this world, I would like you to be there to revert back to where it all started, which was you ruining one of the craziest deaths. But thank God you didn't ruin for me at that time the big twist on how it all happens. And we'll get into that if we do a deep dive onto the books themselves. But let's refocus and let's place these books in order.
I'm just noticing that they must be the American covers. Because it's Sorcerer's Stone here, and like the books that we had, they didn't have this art. This like really like caricature.
Yeah.
Harry
Oh
kind of
my,
looks like a
I did
twig.
not even, I've seen so much of the Half-Blood Prince illustration. I've seen that one a lot, but you're right. These other ones look so unfamiliar. Oh, and I
They're
did grow up
worse.
reading the British
These
books.
suck. Yeah. The British
Okay,
ones were they're elite compared to this.
they
The
are. And
Prisoner of
it is
Azkaban one is
funny.
pretty similar, but
Yeah. No, but yeah, you're right. They're starkly different. And it is funny how many different, uh, there's not too many uses of British words in the British book that would not be immediately obvious to any English speaker, but some of them are a little different. And actually, and I'm really just going to get deep into some of the lore, but there's one part in the Order of the Phoenix, which is the fifth book, where there's a swamp that appears in the hallways. And so Filch, the caretaker, has to punch the students across the swamp to the other side of the hallway. And my whole life growing up, I assumed he was literally like football kick punting them across, but punting in UK means like boating. So he was boating them across the swamp. But
oh,
I grew up
interesting.
always thinking he was literally just kicking those kids across.
Yeah, I would
So
have
there
made the
are a
same
couple
assumption.
differences.
Yeah, but
But yeah, good call out.
I'm glad at least in Canada we still got the better art. Um, Sorry.
We will
Sorry
claim
to the
that.
Americans, but it is what it is. What's this blue one? A blue one is Order of the Phoenix. So that one's
Can't believe you
miserable.
even had to ask. My
No.
goodness. Okay, let's back away from the illustrations because that's not what we're here to discuss today. don't judge a book by its cover and all that. Let's get into the meat.
All
Okay.
right, all right.
So, Sam, I think we should start with you because otherwise I'm just going to take over. What is your favorite Harry Potter book? And just another preface that we'll just focus on the books. We can always do the movies another time. They are completely
We're only
different
taking in the books.
things.
I don't know. I think that we can go through them in like sequential order.
Okay.
And then that will also rev my memory up a bit. I'm very familiar with the stories and whatnot. But like I said, my memory about the books are not as great as yours. But I do think my opinion still holds more sway because you're obviously very biased.
Okay.
Sorcerer's
Well,
Stone or the Philosopher's Stone. I don't know. I think it's a serious. I think it's S. I actually like. It sucks to have to go so strong right off the bat, but I actually think the Philosopher's Stone is an S tier book.
why do you think that?
Well, it has the advantage of introducing the world,
Yes.
and all of the characters,
Yep.
and it's there's nothing more exciting than like, um, the introduction to Diagon Alley and getting going along with Harry, getting Hedwig, and it just I think it captures the magic the most. The Sorting Hat, everything is novel. Um,
Hmm.
and it was
Hagrid, the introduction
yeah,
of Hagrid when he shows up at the hut on the rock. Yeah.
exactly. Turning Dudley into a little pig, or attempting to. So I actually think I think Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone here is an S tier. I don't
Don't
know.
call it Sorcerer's Stone. All right. It's Philosopher's Stone. Ignore this. All right. We'll put it in S.
Well,
I
hold
agree
on.
with
What do
you
you
in many
think?
ways. Well, we can move them as we go on. I agree that Philosopher's Stone introduces the entire world, and I love that part about it. It's also such a short read that it's
Hmm.
easy as a younger kid to get into the universe at maybe a slower pace. I remember the books were coming out maybe every year or every 2 years, so I was kind of growing with the characters. So it's definitely, if you're starting the series, this is one of those series that you really do need to start from the beginning. I can't imagine just picking up one of these
No, yeah,
books
you
and
couldn't
not
do it.
starting with Philosopher's Stone. So I agree, S tier. I do think there are some other books that provide a little more excitement or adventure or mystery. Although when you think about it, the first book, and in many ways all of the books, can kind of stand alone as a bit of a mystery. I mean, the whole question is who's after the Philosopher's Stone? What is being guarded before they even uncover
Nicholas
until about halfway
Flamel.
through the book? Yes, exactly. So there is a whole mystery to that. And when this book is done, the mystery's wrapped up. Of course, Harry's journey continues, but you could read this book and it feels like a complete book at the end.
I think that's
So I
actually the
do love
strength
it.
of all of them in some sense because there is obviously a an overarching story, but they do like they do contain themselves very well.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of hateful online chatter mocking how convenient it is that Voldemort just shows up right after Harry's exams every single year, lets him get through the school year. But, it's set up that way for a reason because to that exact point, it allows the story to be neat and tidy. Each book is a year of his, wizarding education, and each book neatly ties up the mystery of the last. Except kind of as you get a little closer to the end, but
Yeah,
we'll
maybe
get there.
Deathly Hallows. But,
Yeah, or Half-Blood Prince, where it kind of ends on the precipice
oh
of
yeah,
like, what is
that's the one I
next?
meant. Yeah.
Mhm. God, you can't even get them straight. Okay, Sam. Education session happening. Don't worry, we will do many more of these so that by the end of this, you will know every character in Harry Potter, right down to the Pokey, the house elf. Look her up.
No,
All right, so S tier, Philosopher's Stone. So if we move on then into Chamber of Secrets, I would say this is probably my least favorite Harry Potter book, but I love them all.
agreed.
It is my least favorite. Why? Um, It's my least favorite because the first book sets up this incredible world, this future of, Voldemort is trying to come back. Harry and Voldemort have this inextricable link. At this point in the series, you don't know what that is. And then with Chamber of Secrets, it all just kind of, it's like a bit of a filler. That whole main plot doesn't actually progress. You do get this interesting involvement of Voldemort through his teenage self, through this diary. And obviously, as the series goes on, we start to learn the significance of the diary well beyond just this book. And I will say that this book has some really great Ron moments, and we'll talk about characters later, but I feel like Ron got so much hate and disservice in the movies. And yeah, Ron has a lot of, negative attributes that show themselves throughout the series, but he is a great character and he's a great friend and he's funny. And I feel like that
Hmm.
really comes through in this book. But like at the end of the day, it's just the moaning Myrtle ghost, and I hate spiders and the whole spider thing. And I just can't really remember too much. I mean, obviously I remember every moment, but it's not the first book that comes to mind for me when I'm thinking of like my favorite Harry Potter moments.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the last like act of it is exceptional. Like I think the part in the actual Chambers of Secrets itself,
Yeah.
Chamber of Secrets, I think that's fantastic, with the basilisk and whatnot, and the plot line throughout of like trying to figure out what exactly is petrifying the students. I think that's the strongest part of the story. But I agree, there's too much filler. It might be the movies just like unfortunately kind of forcing themselves into my memory. But like the whole Dobby character, like you said, Moaning
You don't
Myrtle,
like Dobby?
no. Though his
Horrid.
death, it's much more sad in the books than in the movies,
It is.
because he is less annoying. Just because you have the benefit of imagining how you want
Not
to.
hearing him. Oh, you should hear Stephen
Yeah,
Fry's
yeah.
Dobby voice because it is
I'll
elite,
give it a
but
listen.
yes, highly
Yeah,
annoying.
that's great that he narrated them. Yeah,
From the
but I agree.
beginning.
I think Chamber of Secrets is a C.
I was going to say B. Listen, I don't put anything Harry Potter below B. We can move it
You're just
around. It's going to be a B. And because you did remind me of something, I have to remember that the first time I read, especially the first three or four books, was like 25 years ago to age myself. So I realize now, if I look at it through the lens of someone who has never read the book before, one of the craziest reveals of Chamber of Secrets is that Tom Riddle is Voldemort. And you just take that for granted once you know the whole
right.
book. And they do it kind of cool in the movies too, because that's exactly how he does it in the books. He writes his name Tom
Term.
Marvolo Riddle, and then he swishes it around and it becomes I am Lord Voldemort. And like, I don't know, as a kid, I was shook. So it's going to be a B. Accept?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. The Prisoner of Azkaban. You got to tell me you remember this one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. This
Book, not
one,
movie.
um, geez, yeah, they blend together so well.
Oh my
I do
God.
have high.
Okay.
I mean, the third one, I think is my favorite movie, but I also think it might be my favorite book. I'm trying to remember the extreme differences between them.
Well,
Uh,
let me jump in and remind you. So I'm so glad you said that. And I may have had some slight influence on this growing up, but the third book is without question my all-time favorite. I think it's my favorite movie too, but it is my favorite book. My first literary crush after Heathcliff was Sirius Black. So I don't even understand rereading these books how a 12-year-old girl was like, yes, this is the guy for me, but have always been in love with Sirius Black since this book. What I loved about this book more than anything was it was still a mystery. I loved the time travel. I don't know that J.K. Rowling did the best time travel I've ever seen in literature. That is a whole other conversation.
yeah,
A lot
hard to
of plot
do.
holes, which is why she ends up destroying all of the time turners in one of the later books. But that whole element of it is so cool. Like, how is Hermione doing this? How's she getting to all her classes? Even though it seems like a small mystery, you never assume that it's going to end up being the climax. But it is
Hmm.
that scene in the Shrieking Shack. It's actually about 4 chapters of the whole book, just that one couple of hours that they spend in the Shrieking Shack where everything comes to light. And you learn that, Snape went to school with Harry's parents, and that you learn that Harry's dad was an animagi and all of his friends were. And you learn that Lupin is a werewolf. And that's the other big mystery is
Right.
what's going on with Remus Lupin. It all comes to this head where you get to see the reality of these four friends, the history they had, and how it all accumulated into this huge moment that they're all living right now, where the truth comes out to Harry. Peter Pettigrew escapes. He ends up being the reason. That whole night is the climax of the entire Harry Potter series. Harry learns his past. He is introduced to his godfather, really the only family member outside of those foul Dursleys that he's ever going to know until he has his own family. And Voldemort comes back to life because of this one day. So it's my favorite book for so many reasons, but the introduction of the Marauders and the way everything ties together in the Shrieking Shack, only to end up with Lupin turning into a werewolf, Harry and Hermione having to go back in time, and then And again, if you haven't read the book at this point, I've basically just summarized it for you. But Harry, in that moment, knowing he's going to be saved by who he thinks is his father, and realizing that he's gone back in time and he saw himself and he has to save himself. I mean, I could get teary eyed just thinking about it. So without
Or
further
Simba and
ado,
Mufasa.
that's an S
Yeah, it's
tier.
an S tier. Because I think you're right. The world building really evolves in this one. And like you said, with the background of the family, but then even just like the creatures, like the Dementors, and what's the thing? It's almost like a mimic from Dungeons and Dragons, or but
Oh, the
the
Bogart.
the Bogart, yes, exactly, where it takes on like the fear of
Mm-hmm. The
and
person
you know
it's looking
Lupin
at.
is afraid of the moon, right? And Ron obviously spiders, and Harry Potter makes sense, Voldemort. Yeah,
No,
so
he's
I agree
afraid
with
of
all of that.
Dementors. He's
Oh, it's
afraid of
Dementors,
fear
you're right.
itself.
Right, he's very wise, that Harry, beyond his years.
It is.
Yeah, but I agree. I agree. I think for all of the reasons that you mentioned, I totally agree with that. Buckbeak. Um,
In fact, it's just going to go right here. That is
yeah,
another thing
Viking
too.
Badger.
In the books, there are even more creatures, and they're so like it's not even a real plot point. But yes, there's Buckbeak. Obviously, he's shown in the movies. So are the Dementors. So is the creepy werewolf. I really hated that they made him hairless in
Yeah,
the
but they
movies.
did a
I
good
kind of
job with that.
pictured.
Where they failed at making Voldemort scary, they did a good
Okay,
job with the
true.
werewolf. It's very creepy.
I'll give you that because I honestly just assumed he would look like a wolf, and it probably would not have had the same effect.
No.
Um, Yeah. Okay. Well, it's surpassing in my mind, it surpasses Philosopher's Stone because even though that's fundamental to setting the groundwork, this is the groundwork of the story. And there's still new exciting introductions to the wizarding world. Like you get to see Hogsmeade for the first time
Hmm.
and some of the shops in
Some
there.
butterbeer.
Exactly. Okay. I feel very good about its placement. I thought you might fight me on that one, so I
No.
now can rest easy for the rest of this.
This one I'm
Um,
not sure what we'll
okay.
think.
Goblet of Fire, I think we might have
Yeah.
some conflicting perspectives. Okay. What you share with me your initial perception or your general perception of Goblet of Fire, and then I'll
Um,
tell you why you're wrong.
the book is far better than the movie, the book version, if I recall correctly. Well, that
A
goes
lot of
for
people
all of them,
love this
honestly,
movie. I
but
will say, I think people who don't even love
I
Harry
think
Potter loved this movie.
aside from the second movie, I think it's the worst. I don't know. Like
Really?
again, like the plot in this one is great. I think that the backdrop of the Triwizard Tournament is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, this is also when the books start to get long, and like it
Yes.
has to be over double the size of Prisoners of Azkaban, which is longer than the
Yeah.
first two. I'm just guessing. You probably know the page numbers by heart, but I remember that book is a tome. Um, I don't know, like the dragons. Obviously, you can't go wrong with dragons, but it feels up until the end with the reveal of Voldemort's return. This book probably is the most filler. With like
Mhm.
all and yeah, you get a kind of a peek into the other schools, like I forget the name, like but the Victor Crumb and the French girl and where they're from.
You're kidding me. Victor Crumb
Uh,
is from Durmstrang, and Fleur de la Cour is from Beauxbaton, or Beaubaton,
right,
depending
right.
on how you say it.
Yeah, okay. So and then like that information, I think they reappear. I think one of Ron's brothers marries Fleur. I forget which Percy, I don't know. One of them. You know.
I hope you get eviscerated online, truly. Bill marries Fleur.
Oh, Bill. But
You,
there's the whole litter of the Weasleys. Anyways, I don't know. I think that there's some interesting things about it. Moaning Myrtle makes a return, which is never great.
yeah.
Cedric Diggory's a good character, but I think like the events are cool, except for the underwater one. Um, but
Okay,
I don't
wait, but
know.
I
I
do
think that this
think,
whole plot is just the movies are probably having an effect, but I think
yes.
that this one's more filler than anything up until uh the getting the cup in the maze.
Okay, that is an interesting perspective. I don't disagree. There is a lot of filler in this book, but I actually think that especially as I got older, I liked Goblet of Fire a lot more. I think that it brought a little bit of um, like adventure without it being so important and crucial to the overarching plot that I feel like as an author, maybe J.K. Rowling was able to just like have fun with it because she could create this plot within a plot about the whole Triwizard Tournament. It is kind of cool to see the other schools, but I agree. You don't really get much of them outside of the two other champions. It's the introduction of Rita Skeeter, and you can almost see, like, you got to wonder if J.K. Rowling was mirroring her own um, perception of media because, like, she really does them dirty with Rita Skeeter.
It's
But
accurate.
I think that Goblet of Fire is interesting because it creates a really grave tone to the whole series that wasn't really felt before that. And you're right that most of it is in the last act, but the entire book opens up with, I think, our first ever POV that's not Harry's, except the very first
Right.
chapter of
Yeah,
Philosopher's
right.
Stone, where you can
Nagini.
tell that Voldemort, Peter Pettigrew was with Voldemort. Voldemort is like some emaciated baby, or like we don't
Hmm.
know what he is, but he's not even able to hold something himself. And then that old caretaker of the Riddle House ends up getting killed by Voldemort because he sees the light on, he goes in. So just it kind of starts dark. And then when Harry goes to the Quidditch Cup with the Weasleys, the Death Eaters come out and they
Hmm.
show the dark mark in the air. So I think it sets the tone for the darkness that's to come. And you
Hmm.
know, Cedric for me was very much a take it or leave it kind of character. He's a nice guy, but he didn't really provide much. But his death was so shocking to me. I just wasn't
My
expecting it
boy.
the first time I read it. Oh, don't do that. It hurt. That's my son. Kills me every time. It's just horrifying. And obviously, Robert Pattinson is adorable. So I really loved Cedric a lot more after seeing that movie. But I think that Goblet of Fire has some deterrences. It is very long. There's a lot of filler, but
Like the
it's like
dance.
I was saying,
Yeah, I don't know.
the Yule Ball.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Yule Ball, that's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. The tonal shift definitely is most apparent in this one. I do think it kind of begins in the third, but you're absolutely right. It's like amped up and sets the stage for the remainder of the series. I agree with that.
I also
I
think
don't
it
think it's
shows,
bad, but I don't think it's the best.
agreed. I think it shows the like true characteristic traits of Harry as well, because Harry is not the typical main character. I mean, I've seen so many hilarious things online that like he's literally a jock who became a cop, which is hilarious and accurate. But when you think about it, he's some scrawny boy. He's, you know, like not overly, he's not like this overly attractive, outgoing, you know, quarterback kind of guy. He's also not that great at
He's a
classes. He's
Nepo
not
baby.
just, okay, whoa, shots fired, but again, not necessarily wrong. But I think what this shows is that Harry is just a character of pure heart and bravery, and so many times that gets him into trouble, and he's actually quite stupid in a lot of times. But it shows that the way that he gets through things is like I can't even
Luck.
explain it. He just, yes, a lot of luck, truly, but like there's a little bit of grit to Harry where he's just going to see things through and get shit done. I mean, my God, if I was 14 years old and someone carried me off to a graveyard and murdered someone in front of me and stuck me up to a grave, like I'm dying there. I'm not trying. There's no way. There's just no way. So I appreciate Harry's nerve and his ability, his courage as a child. I really appreciated that. I did not relate to it, but I was jealous of it in a way. Like he's a complex character, you know. I think a lot of people do him dirty by just saying he's some basic jock. I don't think they're wrong, but I think there's a little more to him, and you really see that in Goblet of Fire, and it comes through in Order of the Phoenix. So if you will allow it, I think we put A for Goblet of
Yeah,
Fire.
I can accept it. It's definitely not any higher than that.
Yes, no, you can't touch the other two. Agreed. Okay, next is Order of the Phoenix. Forever, this was my favorite book, but I have a couple of reasons now that I don't think it is. Do you remember the book? This is a movie that I made you watch relentlessly. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know why
This
I
is
resonated with
probably
the
the
movie
one
so
I have,
much.
yeah, the most memories of.
From the
Maybe not
movie
so
or
much
from
with the
the book?
book. Maybe both.
Like Dumbledore's Army, I loved
Yes,
that a
yeah, I
lot more in
remember
the
the whole.
books.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great scene. I think that this is. I I think that this is a better like book than both The Prisoner of Azkaban and The Philosopher's Stone. I think as a true book, I think this is the best of them all. Uh, um,
Oh, it's the longest
it's
one
also
though.
it's long. It is long, but it's not like The Goblet of Fire where it's like more of a self-contained plot, which there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But everything does like serve the greater narrative, and it really does feel like you're amping up to something. Like you said with Dumbledore's army,
Yeah.
there's the Order of the Phoenix, obviously itself. Uh, I
The
can't believe
big battle at the
in the fourth one we
Ministry.
didn't even talk about Mad Eye Moody, but we in the fifth
Oh
one
my
you see
God,
his
right.
return, right? Like the actual Mad Eye Moody. Or I guess that
Yes,
happens at the
and
end of the
much more
fourth.
so in the books, but he does come back into the movies. Yes, that's right. So he's the big mystery in the fourth one to many degrees too, because you don't know who put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire. it comes out, it's Mad Eye Moody, but no, it's not Mad Eye Moody. It's Barty Crouch Jr.
Mhm.
masquerading as Mad Eye Moody. You're right. That's definitely the most contained kind of
This
mystery of
this is
Goblet
where
of
the
Fire.
introduction of the prophecy comes in, right?
That's the fifth one in
Because
Order of the
yeah,
Phoenix.
in Order
Yes.
of the Phoenix, that's what I mean. So I don't know. I just think if Prisoner of Azkaban fleshed out the world more, I think that this kind of filled in the plot, and I think it does it in a great way. Like I said,
Hmm.
it's been. I mean, all of these are underscored by the fact that it's been many years. Um, but yeah, I don't remember. Like it is long. You said it's the longest, and I can believe that. But the fourth one felt like a slog where I don't think I had that perception with Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. And I do agree. It is possible, though, that you are forgetting some of the elements of the book because there is a lot of filler in the book. And I mean, I don't think anything is filler in Harry Potter, but there really is. Like, I mean, maybe you wouldn't call it filler because it is a coming of age story in many ways, but Harry's weird on again, off again romance with Cho Chang, which, like,
Hmm.
anyway, just so much to unpack there that we're just not even going to go into. But that whole thing is like weird filler. She's such a two-dimensional character. I don't love that. Like she's sad about her ex-boyfriend. I don't know. There's really nothing else there. So all of that is a little
Well, you
flat
must
for
eat up
me.
all of the series Black backstory and the Black House or whatever. I don't know what they call their manor. But and what's a grip or not grip hook? That's the guy in the bank. Who's their little servant elf?
Watching the cogs in your brain move right now, it's Grimmauld Place.
Yeah,
And
Grimmauld
his
Place. All
house
right.
elf
Yeah,
is
okay.
Creature.
Creature. Yes,
And
very fitting
Creature's a
name.
piece of shit anyway. So we don't like
Yeah,
Creature
well, they're all
here.
pieces of shit. I mean, the whole families are pieces of shit. Perhaps
Well,
excluding
except
Sirius
Sirius
Black.
and Regulus, or do you not remember RAB?
I do remember RAB. He's the one who originally goes after the locket, right? In the cave
Hmm.
in the sixth.
Yes, he
Yeah,
realizes
so
what Voldemort was up to and takes the locket.
well, this is all given your first love. This book is written explicitly for
Yeah.
you.
Well,
I
okay,
don't know where you're
obviously,
putting
as I
it.
said, I love Order of the Phoenix. It was my favorite forever. And I think you actually made some really good points that I didn't consider before. It moves the plot more than anything. There is a moment, and it does not come through in the movies at all, where there's an entire chapter after the battle at the Ministry where Sirius dies and Harry chases Bellatrix and he tries to use an unforgivable curse, the Cruciatus curse on her. And then Voldemort shows up, and Voldemort and Dumbledore have their duel. The Ministry sees Voldemort there. They realize that Harry hasn't been lying. There's a lot of emotion to this book because all the media are basically calling Harry a foul liar. Dumbledore's getting it as well. He almost gets expelled for using magic outside of school.
It's
And really,
fake
it was that
news.
foul bitch Umbridge who sent them to him. And I've never
Right.
hated a
Oh, yeah.
character more than I hate Dolores Umbridge. And, again, I was a kid, but such a great job of a terrible character
Is
that you kind of love to hate.
is Hagrid's brother in the movies?
Yes. The
Okay.
CGI is not great. It's not
I
great.
don't remember that at all because he's like quite it's a major part of the fifth book, right? Like not
He is.
it's not so overly so, but and
They do a good
The
job.
centaurs are totally neglected in the movies, right? I guess
No,
in the
they're in the
first
movies a
one
little bit.
he's okay.
They're pretty much in the movies where they are in the books. There are a couple small encounters with them that aren't overly relevant. So in the first book, if you recall, it's Firenze, one of the centaurs that saves Harry when he's in detention in the woods and he sees Voldemort slash Quirrell drinking unicorn blood.
Mhm.
Anyway, so there's that moment, but the centaurs make a bigger appearance in the fifth book for a couple of reasons. They're not all shown in the movie. So I don't, oh my God, is it? I
Well, the
can't
centaurs
recall,
take Umbridge
honestly, in
away,
the,
right?
yes, so that is in the movies, but in the movies, Dolores Umbridge is allowed to fire teachers that she doesn't feel are adequate, and she ends up firing Professor Trelawney, the divination
Right.
professor, and the one who
Yeah.
made not only the prophecy that Voldemort would return, but the prophecy that's revealed in the fifth book about Harry essentially being marked as Voldemort's equal and them having to fight to the death. So in the books, uh, Firenze becomes the divination professor when Trelawney gets sacked. And I
Hmm.
honestly, you'd think I'd remember because I've seen this movie like 100 times.
It's
I
not
don't think
I
that's in
don't
the
think it is.
movie.
No, I
No,
don't think so
but the
either.
moment at the end is. So that is when essentially Harry has the vision that Sirius has been taken to the ministry, and Hermione, sage, wise Hermione, God love her, is like, you need to fact check this. We can't just go off to the ministry. So Harry sneaks into Dolores Umbridge's office, uses her fireplace, and he sees that evil, foul creature who lies to Harry and says, "Yeah, Sirius is in the Department of Mysteries. He's never coming back." Umbridge ends up catching them, and Hermione comes up with this half-baked plan to lead her into the woods and hopefully, just get the centaurs aware of their presence and, get them to help her get rid of Umbridge. So that happens in the books and the movies pretty much the same. The centaurs they do end up carting off Umbridge because she makes a lot of disgusting slurs and negative comments to them, but they're equally mad at Harry and Hermione. And they're like, we're not just kind of your servants to get rid of people for you. And then just as they're making a decision about what to do to them, Grop shows up and ends up like
Right.
having it out with the
Grop, that was the
centaurs.
name.
And
Right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so he is in it. But there are moments like that. I mean, I prefer that part of the books, but even that feels a little bit long. I don't know.
Okay,
There's a
so where are
lot
you
of
putting
parts in
it?
it that it's still an S. I think it's still an S, but I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I think I talked myself into making it an A, but you kind of talked yourself into making it an S. So let's put it an S for now. And we may end up moving some of these
I'm
because
fine with it in S because I don't think the next two are S's, honestly.
agreed. I agree. I agree. And I think maybe there's a case for, although Philosopher's Stone creates the series, the rationale we're giving for Prisoner of Azkaban and Order of the Phoenix in driving the plot and creating the background, the lore, I don't know. I mean, maybe all three of these do serve that purpose. Prisoner of Azkaban creates the background context around the Marauders, Snape's involvement, Harry's kind of background lineage. Um, Philosopher's Stone creates the world, and Order of the Phoenix carries the plot through to fully understanding this is now Voldemort v. Harry who will win.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
all three are
So I
S.
think these are
Agreed.
the heavyweight champions.
Okay,
Um,
agreed.
but all right, so Half-Blood Prince.
I'm surprised you even know the name based on the way you've been going this whole time. But
I,
yes,
I
Half-Blood
have to admit, I
Prince.
don't actually really remember this book all too well. I
This is a
don't
great
think
book.
for most of these I can come up with like some differences that I can recall between the films and the movies or the books and the films, but I don't think I
Well,
can come up with much on this one. All I know is that the movie tonally is so different. I think they got a different director. It's a horrible movie.
do
I
you
think.
think? I think a
Yeah.
lot of people really like the movie. Oh, I'd be so interested. We should have done some research. Well, comment below your favorite
Well, we'll
movie,
do the
please.
movies. We can
But
do the movies at a later date.
yeah.
But I don't know. I enjoy the story of this one because it begins the hunt for the Horcruxes. Uh, Obviously, as we mentioned, this is where Dumbledore kicks the bucket. And he's got a great death. I remember actually there is a difference. There's a lovely funeral scene for Dumbledore, I believe, in the books. Like there's a whole service essentially for him. And I think
Yes.
it's alluded to in the movies where like you see his burial site, but it's a bit much bigger deal in the books, if I recall.
Yes, it definitely is.
A lot of
Um,
sad character movements. You get a little more sympathy for Malfoy, who is has
mhm.
just been usurped into the cause. But
Yeah. I
aside from
mean,
that, I don't really remember too much about the book.
well, you have to remember that this is the book that introduces Horcruxes. So the biggest plot mover of this is Dumbledore and Harry having these regular meetings where Dumbledore is sharing memories with Harry so he can understand Voldemort's history and more importantly, how to destroy him in the end. And this is the introduction of Horace Slughorn, who ends up becoming the
Right.
potions professor, and then Snape finally gets the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor role that he's always wanted. And you come to realize halfway through the book that Dumbledore has actually brought Slughorn back for a purpose. Slughorn has this very important memory of a conversation he had with Voldemort that Dumbledore needs the details on in order to truly understand if Voldemort created Horcruxes. Now, I always found this to be a bit of a weak plot hole. If you reread the books as much as I do, there are several moments. The second Dumbledore got the diary, he's clear that it's something more advanced than average magic. I, knowing that the diary is there, and then by the point in the sixth book when Dumbledore reveals that he's destroyed another Horcrux, that's before he actually sees this memory from Slughorn. So it just makes you wonder, like, why was this memory really that important? You obviously knew that Voldemort was creating Horcruxes, but in this memory, Voldemort speaks to the significance of the number seven in magic, and that's the piece that Dumbledore was really looking for because now he knows Voldemort has created six Horcruxes so that he has seven pieces of his soul, the seventh being in his body, and that will at least help him and Harry determine how many are still out there and like where they may be.
And where he
So
holds the
that
ultimate secret that Harry is indeed The
Yes.
last remaining
Oh,
Horcrux.
yes, he does
What a
not share that
liar.
with.
What a user Dumbledore is.
Look, there's a lot of Dumbledore hate out there, but really, what else was he supposed to do? Tell the kid and make his life horrible. And again, if you read them as much as I do, at the end of
Slaughter
the
him.
fourth book, it's very important. It's very important to the total plot. And I love these little Easter eggs. This was just, again, the first time I read a series that did this. Of course, it doesn't do it the best. It's not the first series to do it, but it was my first experience. When you reread these books, at the end of the fourth book, Harry is back from the graveyard. He's explaining to Dumbledore and Sirius, RIP, that he was there and saw Voldemort get resurrected. And he explains exactly how he did that. And he says to get back into his body, he had to take bone from his father and he took blood from his enemy. He took my blood. And there's a gleam in Dumbledore's eye of triumph. And Harry doesn't understand it. It goes away, and you don't hear about it for three more books. I mean, literature,
Yeah,
folks.
sure. Well,
That's what it is.
to J.K. Rowling's credit, she really did, I think, a better job than maybe many people would have anticipated in plotting out the narrative. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
how
was
much she would have
impressed.
had, but when the first three came out, but she clearly had more than I would have thought. No, I was a child, so I was not thinking about it. But in hindsight, yeah, sure, and you're much more privy to these little moments. That's cool. Obviously I don't recall that. Um, so I don't know.
Obviously.
It's another one where things are wrapping up, but yeah, I'm gonna defer to you on this one because this is probably the book that I have the least amount of
Memories of.
yeah,
I
recall
love this
recall.
book. It's really fun. Also, I'm a little biased because, like I said, I'm actually almost done listening to this one in my Stephen Fry audiobook. But it's fun. It's They're teenagers. They really are teenagers. Hermione and Ron are having this little will they, won't they. Ron's being a total idiot with Lavender Brown because finally a girl has given him some attention. Harry's starting to realizes unresolved issues for or feelings for Ginny, and then they actually end up getting together. And Ginny, I mean, I say that Ron took a lot of hate in the movies, and he did, but God, they just ruined that character. I mean, there's no character there, and Ginny is an amazing character in the books. She's funny, she's fiery, she's spirited, she's not afraid to give it back. She's clearly the reflection of someone who grew up with six brothers. So, five brothers, six brothers, six brothers. So anyway,
Too
it's
many.
just a lot. Like there's a lot of cool little moments like that. I love seeing the back story of Voldemort, understanding he's from this like mega pure blood family that kind of went to rot and ended up having nothing. It kind of weirdly makes you feel like bad for Voldemort in a weird way. And simultaneously, though, I feel bad for Malfoy too. And I'm not one of those Malfoy apologists. Like he's, he grew up in a bad circumstance. He's a product of his circumstance, but like he had no issue with that. He was not actively trying to get out of that. All he wanted to do was kill Dumbledore and be lauded for
Yeah, oh
that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. He was
you know,
nice. He's complicit. He
yeah, he's not a good guy turned
no,
bad or a good guy
no.
who's on the wrong path. And same with Snape. Like these are bad people, but they're complex characters. You're not just a bad or good person, to quote Sirius Black. They're not just good people and Death Eaters, although that's a Soul movie quote, I will say. Anyway, to digress, there's a lot of cool, fun, lighthearted things in this one, while you still get a lot of interesting backstory. And it does move the plot along quite a bit because of the end. The end is crazy. Like you
Yeah,
were
the ending
saying
is
with
great,
Chamber of
sure.
Secrets. Like the last act is
They
crazy.
always
Not
pull off the
only
endings in all of these.
Yes. Yeah, it's a book that's leading you to a very purposeful end every time. But there's also the mystery in this one of the Half-Blood Prince. Harry has this old potions
Right.
book and he sees all these different spells. He actually ends up almost killing Malfoy with this very dark spell that he just uses
The
out of the book
cuts.
because he's an idiot. Yes, Sectum Sempra. Nice memory. At least you got the cuts out of it. And then at the end of the book, right after Harry has just watched Snape kill Voldemort, he's always suspected, but now in his mind he knows for sure Snape is bad, has always been bad. And at that time, he encounters Snape, and Snape's like, "I was the Half Blood Prince." Boom, mic drop. It's cool. It's going in A.
Yeah, hey, fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Okay.
All
So our
right, that
last
brings us
one,
down to
Deathly
yeah,
Hallows.
the Deathly Hollows.
I mean, it's the ender. It's the be all
It's
end all.
similar,
It's the
yes,
accumulation of it all.
similar to how you felt with The Order of the Phoenix. I remember when this came out actually, and I really, really liked it. Looking back, I think I've probably read this one no more than two times. Uh, I
Yes,
think
probably.
that I don't think it's as good as I remember. Um, but
It is
le-
still
yeah,
good.
they
It
take you out
wraps
of
everything up.
Hogwarts, which is like necessary. It does wrap everything up, and I think it does it in a fine job. I think if I recall, the pacing isn't bad. Um,
All right, let me jog your memory with a couple of things, and then maybe that will be more clear. But the pacing is not bad, but there is those moments when they're in the woods that really, I used to feel they really dragged out. And then rereading the books as I was older, I didn't feel like it dragged on quite so much, but they are moving around in the woods a lot. And there's this clear frustration of Dumbledore only gave me the smallest piece of the puzzle, and I don't actually know what to do. And like, this is fruitless. And that is what ends up um, creating that
yeah,
friction
it's
between them
this.
so that Ron ends up
Yeah,
leaving. Um, but there are a couple of reasons I love this book. First of all, the end of it all, like it's a
I
great
don't
wrap
like.
up
I
of
think
the
the last
book.
chapter is abysmal. I don't like
Agreed.
the ending.
Wait,
Um,
the ninth, you're talking about the epilogue.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I do not know if that was necessary. In fact, I don't think that it was at all.
I think I read, and I'd have to fact check this, but I'm pretty sure I read an interview with Rowling after the book was published, where she essentially didn't want people to take and manipulate the characters. Haha, because that's literally all she's done since with those movies that I can't even watch. But that's why she did the epilogue to basically wrap up with a bow. There's the end of the story. No one else can like lead this in another direction. I
Yeah, and
agree.
fair
I
enough,
hate
but why not
the
just hold on
epilogue.
to the rights? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
fair.
well,
Yeah, the
yeah.
epilogue I think sucks. It sucks in the movie too, for that matter. But it's
Yes.
also it's just it's the name of Harry's son
Albus
is it's
Severus.
just it's too much.
It's a
Yeah, but I
laid
don't know.
on
Like
very thick.
the plot beats throughout it are fine. I think the snitch, the little mystery with the snitch, I think that's great. I
I
open at
open
the
at the
close.
close.
Yeah, I
You
think that
remember
like
that?
that's
I love
very
that.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The moment he has with Dumbledore, which I loved a lot more in the books, but I do feel like they did an okay job in the movie. They don't really talk about Dumbledore's back. I think I might have said Voldemort, but anyway, they don't talk about Dumbledore's backstory quite as much in the movies and what really
Like with
happened
his
with him. Like, there's
brother
really
and
no.
his sister, his crazy sister,
Mhm.
right?
And he essentially was kind of influenced by Gellert Grindelwald, who ended up becoming a dark wizard before Voldemort. And Dumbledore kind of maybe unknowingly or maybe unwilling to see was going down this path with Grindelwald, which ended up accumulating in this big fight between them where Dumbledore's sister died. So he never took a position of power. He became a professor, never wanted to go into the ministry, even though they always asked him because he felt he couldn't be trusted with power after what happened. So it gives, a little bit more of humanity to Dumbledore, but that moment when Harry first of all, he goes into Snape's pet. Let's just back
Are you
all the
talking
way
about
up.
like Harry's
Again,
like
last act.
NDE, his near-death experience, and he's
Yes,
like, yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay.
But I was going to say before that, seeing Snape's memories and starting to understand, like, oh my God, yeah, Snape hated your dad, but the real story here, no one is, he loved your mom. Like, he loved Lily Evans. And that
Yeah,
is
he's
the
a
reason
simp.
for everything Snape did. Okay. I mean, that's one way to put it, and you may not be wrong, but it's crazy. And when you're reading, I can't even remember what it was like the first time, but always know, is Snape good? Is he bad? What is the deal here? And then realizing there was so much more to that when he asks Harry to look at him right before he dies because he just wants to see Lily's
In your
eyes.
mother's
My
eyes. Yeah.
God. And then Harry gets all that context. He understands he needs to die. He, at 17 years old, willingly goes out, faces death. And then he has that moment with Dumbledore. And I think canonically, like, did that happen? Was it all in his head? Is it real? That last line of the chapter, he says, I have one more question.
Yes,
Is
yeah.
this really happening or is this all in my head? And Dumbledore says, of course it's all in your head, but why would that mean it's not real? I mean,
Well,
that's the
in a
kind of
world of
philosophy that
magic,
stayed with me.
people can't draw the line on that one. In a world of flying broomsticks and trolls, it's like, yeah, and it's a lovely moment. I totally agree. And I think that she pulls it off really well with that phrase there. So yeah, I agree. They do tie up all most of the loose ends. I assume perhaps even all of them. The Deathly Hallows, like the story behind that. Again, I feel like the movie is just influencing me too much because I hate in the film like that little animation reel when they're telling the
Yeah, I
story of
see. I
the
think it was a
brothers
clever way to do it because I don't know how
yeah.
else they would have been able to
I
share
don't
the
know if
story.
the story was even necessary. I think that was one thing you mentioned earlier about how J.K. Rowling was dropping some seeds throughout the narrative. That is one that was totally obviously not in the other like that wasn't a part of the plot until this one. And I don't think that it's pulled off well. I think Harry's invisibility cloak can just be the invisibility cloak. I don't think you need the Elder Wand. I think that it's worse than just like a MacGuffin. It's just
All right. I'm gonna have to stop
it
you right
doesn't I don't
there.
know if that actually provides anything to the plot. I
And
don't,
this
like I get it. Like it's so that Voldemort ends up defeating himself, like the hubris or whatever, and because Harry would,
No.
I understand, but I don't know. I don't think that it enhanced the story in any capacity.
Okay, let me break down why you're wrong. This is great. This is a great exercise. First of all, you're not wrong wholly. And I think that from a movie perspective, if they weren't following books, they would have never called this movie The Deathly Hallows. They would have never done anything around the three. They would have just removed the Hallows from the whole movie because they make no sense in the movie and they don't do a good job of tying it all together. In the books, there is a lot more that really matters around the Elder Wand in particular and the Resurrection Stone because Harry's able to use all three of these and become master
Yes,
of
he's
the
the master
Hallows,
of, yeah, 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 I
but
know.
in a very interesting way. The only reason he defeats Voldemort in the end is because he ended up um, disarming Draco Malfoy when
No, I'm
Draco
aware.
Malfoy was the
Yeah.
true owner of the Elder Wand. It's hard to do that in a visual medium, but in the books, that all makes a lot more sense. And the
Yes,
way
it
the
shows he's like a
ending moment,
pacifist and he's like he's earned the right for this power because he hasn't abused it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
not necessarily. I think that's actually more of like Frodo with the ring, to be honest. But I think that what it more is just a knowledge of magic that's deeper than just being the most powerful. All Voldemort wants is to be immortal, the most powerful. He disdains the ancient magic of love, and I know that gets a little lame, but it's very clear that he's very offense, no defense. Like he's not focused on these other aspects of magic. And Harry understands magic on a deeper level, and he has more love and more of that. I don't even know what you want to
But
call it,
isn't
but
the
like
story
connection to the
of, but the
magic.
story of the Deathly Hollows is the fact that that exact power, like the, for instance, like the Resurrection Stone, like the whole point was that this actually sucks, and bringing anyone back with this is a fate worse than death. Like, the thing
The
with the
stone is
wand
the weirdest one. I think
is
the
pure
stone is,
power, yeah,
yeah,
and then the cloak is just like voyeurism, you know.
okay.
So fine, Harry could be the master of the
Or
Hollow, of
like
the Deathly
ultimate
Hollows, but
sleuth. But I grant, in the end, I don't think it matters that he is the master, but it ties his personal story together really well. He always had this connection to his father. It actually ends up being a connection to some of the deepest magic ever. Like whether these were really gifts from
sure,
death
sure,
or just
it
like
tries to
very,
add some depth. I don't think it pulls it off, honestly.
but you're
But yeah,
recalling the movie. And I think that if you would remember elements of the book, when Harry has that moment in the book where he realizes that the snitch will open when he's about to die, he opens it, he uses the stone in the most generous or at least selfish way possible because he's using that stone to bring his loved ones with him so that he can face death courageously. So Sirius, his mom, his dad, Lupin, they all show up and they
yeah, it's a
walk
very
with him to
touching
that last
moment.
moment. But those moments aren't in the movies. And I think that what you're saying is not wrong. The Deathly Hallows are kind of a throw-in. Like you're right, I don't see any Easter eggs there from book 1 or 2, but overall they make a lot more sense in the books. And I feel
Yeah,
like this
sure,
book
I don't contest
wraps
that,
everything
but
up well, and I think it's an S tier.
yeah, I don't think it's S, but you're the keeper of the keys, the keeper of the books here, um, and your memory far exceeds mine, so I have to defer to your wisdom here, but yeah, I don't know. All in
All
all,
right,
the book series is great. I don't
let's go
want
A.
no, no, you can put it in an S.
No, I think that if we're continuing with while it ends the story really well, we don't love the epilogue. I agree. When I read books, I don't even read the epilogue. The three that are in S for me have they build the plot, they build the world, they build the background, the backstory. So I'm happy with that. I think the A's all bring in something that still makes it an incredible book. And I think Chamber of Secrets is still a great book, especially for kids, but it's B because it's just in this masterclass of amazing books and amazing stories.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's
And
my take.
yeah. No, I think this is a fair list. Um, it is great having the benefit of growing up with these books where you age with the stories. So I actually would be super interested in going back. There's quite a lot to get through, but and just in seeing how it compares. One is like an adult reader, but also if it can capture the magic again, or if I would come with too jaded a perspective on them. I don't know.
Well, you know what that sounds like? Sounds like another good take series in the making where we can start from
It could
scratch.
be.
Yes, I just listened to all 6 books, but twist my arm, I will read them all over again. I've got
I don't doubt
them
it.
all on my bookshelf. So yeah, we should do that. We should dive into this series, and we'd love to know what your favorite books were, your least favorite books. Would love to hear your own tier list, and everything that we got wrong, because there are surprisingly bigger Harry Potter fans out there than me. It's hard to
There's going
believe,
to be
but
a
there
great
are.
Chamber
So
of Secrets stand down there, and
there might
you
be.
know,
I don't know. I'd love to hear it though. I
some
think
Agog enjoyer. It's Agog, right? Or Azog or
Aragog.
Aragog. Yeah, okay. Well,
You're
there it
genuinely
is.
useless. We're going to do a little fire lightning round, basic Q&A that goes, or basic trivia, Harry Potter, that goes from easy to expert to see how far you get next time, Sam. So if you want to
Sure.
see Sam embarrass himself, please encourage us to do that, and that'll be our next good take. But here you have it, our order of the 7 Harry Potter books listed, S through B. I mean, we didn't have any C's, so can't get that mad at us.
No.
All right. Well, next time we'll dive a little deeper, but thanks for joining us for another good takes, and we'll see y'all soon.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.